Indiana, we are simply passing through history. This is history.
Welcome back to the Backwards History Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Will, here with my co-host, Kevin. Say hi, Kevin.
Hi, Kevin.
Shut up, Kevin.
Well, I find that offensive.
Well, I find it offensive that you find it offensive.
All right, well, who's offended now? I'm confused. Does that cancel it out?
I think so.
I'm so confused.
I don't think either one of us can speak now, because we're both offended, and we just get rid of everything that offends us.
Oh, that's the episode. Enjoy.
Done.
And done.
Well, before we actually get into the episode, I need you to go out and do those social media thingy things. Go like, share, subscribe. Tell your buddies, tell your friends, tell your mama, tell your daddy. All of that. And check out Mike Ramsey Music for the music that you hear at the beginning and the end of every episode. That being said, I think you might know where we're going with this one.
Or at least have a strong feeling.
Well, partially, because it's not entirely on the thread of that kind of stuff. But it is associated.
Me.
We kind of want to talk about, because of recent events, the similarities between the actions of Antifa and BLM. Not necessarily people who say Black Lives Matter, because yes, they do. But the people who identify as the group Black Lives Matter that have joined forces with Antifa and are doing certain things that kind of draw a connection back to another group of people from history, known as the Brown Shirts, which some of you may know what those are. Some of you probably have no idea.
Probably not.
And that's why we have Kevin.
That's why we have Kevin. The Brown Shirts, for those of you who may not be fully aware or completely oblivious to who they were, is a group that predates World War II. They are heavily Nazi affiliated, or were anyway. This group came about after the end of World War I. World War I ended, and it wasn't where one side was actually defeated, say in Germany. It was, we decided we're going to stop fighting. We're all going to work out a great peace deal. Well, in short, Germany got the short end of the stick. France tended to, really kind of stick it to the Germans and take as much as they could out of the whole ordeal. And that left many veterans of World War I on the German side very upset, because technically they didn't lose. They agreed to, peaceful resolution, air quotes, and ended up, being treated as though they were the losers. And that causes a lot of animosity. So this is where the veterans, World War I on Germany side, and they formed this group, which eventually becomes the Brown Shirts under the Nazi Party. And their origins are, we're here to act as security, air quotes again, for Nazi Party meetings. We're here to keep the peace, more or less, make sure our party members aren't oppressed. There's a buzzword for you.
All right.
And as the Nazi Party grows in power, the Brown Shirts become more of a paramilitary group.
More the muscle of the party. And just to be clear, the Nazi Party was the National Socialist Party. Sounds similar to a group we're going to talk about later. Just pay attention to our buzzwords.
Just buzzwords here. and it grows as the Nazi Party grows, and eventually becomes quite violent in the years leading up to World War II, pushing Nazi agenda rhetoric, oppressing people in order to have their message heard, which isn't exactly always well received, and there is sometimes pushback, which leads to violent outbreaks, confrontation fights in the streets, destruction of property. I think you all see where I'm going with this. And they were given the name Stormtroopers because of they just basically come storming in anytime there's a gathering of people. And they were a very oppressive group, and they started with what you could consider good intention. And as their influence and numbers grew, they grew up to be roughly around about 4 million members by the time the war really breaks out. And that's a lot of people with a lot of sway, a lot of influence. And they were used in very negative and very detrimental ways.
Such as book burnings for any publication that the party didn't agree with, any historical publications that the party didn't like.
It wasn't party approved. It got destroyed.
But they had these huge book burnings that you can find pictures of online still not still today, like they were online before then, but right. But online today.
And these were on a massive scale. I mean, just mountains of books on fire.
And the brown shirts weren't just the veterans. They also conscripted youth into it.
Oh, recruiting heavily, yes.
A lot of the brown shirt members were college-aged males.
Needing an outlet.
Are you smelling what we're stepping in yet?
I think you might. So,
let's draw some parallels, won't we, Kevin?
Let's give it a shot.
Currently, today, when we're recording this, it's the 13th of June, 2020. As we sit here right now, there's about 4 city blocks of Seattle, Washington.
I don't think you can call it Seattle anymore.
Oh, it's Chaz now.
It's Chaz now.
It's the Capitol Hill ambiguous zone, otherwise known as Chaz, which is a 4-block area that people claiming to be BLM and Antifa have taken over.
Like fully taken over.
They've abolished the police in this area.
Taken over a police precinct, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. They've barricaded the area and now have armed guards, and they're policing their own, air quotes.
Air quotes on that hard.
But that actually came after a lot of, or at least at the same time as a lot of what we're drawing parallels with. It's almost like what do they call themselves? The Democratic Socialist Party. Otherwise known as the Democrat Party.
There's that buzzword again. Socialist.
Socialists, right. It's different because they call it Democratic Socialism.
Of course, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, I learned that from Breadlines Bernie. And I like to sniff children Biden.
That's just creepy.
Right. But we've seen a lot of instances of, well, I don't like that. That offends me.
Change it.
Cancel it.
Yeah.
What the media has coined, mostly Fox News, I'll admit
yeah.
has coined it as cancel culture.
Yes,
which is, again. I mean, it's, yeah. I mean, it's pretty direct because, we don't like that. We find it offensive. Cancel it.
Right.
We didn't like what that person said. Cancel him. Fire him.
Yeah.
Freedom of speech is dead.
And
if it doesn't please the party,
get rid of it.
Get rid of it. And we see particular almost 200-year-old history suddenly in 2020 is the cause of everything. Even though it's been around for 200 years.
Give or take.
But it's history that doesn't please the party. Get rid of it.
Yeah, it's offensive.
It's offensive. You can't use certain words. Heard yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
The Merriam-Webster dictionary is going to change the definition of racism.
Oh, yeah.
Where racism is only racism in a class society. So if you're of a higher class, you can only commit racism against the lower class, but the lower class can't commit racism against the higher class, but then that also, in and of itself, is racist. It's weird.
Like some Inception level stuff there.
No, that's some 1984 newspeak stuff there, limiting vocabulary to control the narrative.
Control the way people think.
Exactly. And it looks extremely similar to the brown shirts.
It really does. Now, we're not implying these people are Nazis. And I'm sure anyone who would want to rebut this would like, he's calling these people Nazis. No, we're drawing parallels. We're showing you how history repeats itself if you don't learn it.
Well, I mean, are they not? Nazis nothing more than a shortened version of National Socialist in German. So, they're national. Even if they call themselves the Democratic Socialist Party, if they're supposed to be a national party, then they are a Nationalist Socialist Party.
Right, but the term Nazi referring more to a actual particular historic group.
Oh, because people called something.
Right.
Everything is that way. No logic of actually how that word came to be is implied. Right.
Let's just throw historical context out the window.
Kind of ties back to our episode from last week.
Right.
But, I don't know. I'm not a fan of this.
Oh, absolutely not.
Situation at all. Being the constitutionalist that I am, everything that's going on right now flies directly in the face of the Constitution. Limiting speech because you don't like it. Tough.
This is America.
This is America. Everyone has a right to offend you. And you have the right to be offended. But you do not have the right to limit someone's speech because it made you feel bad.
What's the old quote? While I may not agree with what you say, I will defend to the death your right to say it. It's two different things. You don't have to like what they say, but you have to respect their right to say it. Just like they have to give you the same respect.
And I'm sure somebody listening to me, well, you can't say fire in a crowded theater. You can say fire in a crowded theater if there's a fire.
Right. And if there's not, you have to suffer the consequences.
Right. The only way that it makes it not free speech is if it's a call to action that incites a problem.
Right.
So, yelling fire in a crowded theater is not against the Constitution if there's a fire. Right. So, if you see something and you say something about it and it's true, just because it offends somebody doesn't make it outside of the bounds of constitutional protections.
Right. I don't recall anywhere in the Constitution talked about protecting people's feelings.
Well, and then somebody's going to be like, oh, it's the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. My happiness is my feelings.
That's one interpretation. As we've learned, different people can interpret things differently. And, telling one person their interpretation is right and the other one's wrong causes problems. It's inherently flawed.
Then you've got the right to peacefully assemble. Seek redress of grievance. Not burn down a city. Not take over portions of a city because you're upset. And on top of the fact that portions of cities have been burned down, a portion of one city has been taken over. Threats have been made to move riots into suburbs of cities and things like that. People naturally want to be armed.
Makes sense.
Which is their right in this country. While these riots are going on, you've got the House, which is predominantly Democratic, pushing more gun control in a time where you have very obvious reasons to want to have firearms and want them not any more restricted than they already are. The Democratic Party actually supports the actions of these individuals to do what they're doing and are supporting making it harder for those affected to defend themselves from these individuals. This is literally the playbook of the Brown Shirts. Gun control has gotten to the ridiculous level.
Oh, Lord.
Ridiculous level that now not even Elmer Fudd and Yosemite Sam of the Looney Tunes can have their guns.
That's right. A hunter and a gunslinger
can't have guns.
Can't have guns.
So now the hunter is supposed to have a scythe or sickle, whichever you want to call it.
Scythe sounds cooler.
Right. But what is he hunting? Wheat?
And, what's a more merciful way to die or to kill an animal is a quick shot and it's done, or a quick hit with a scythe, and it's like...
And it's Looney Tunes. They don't die when they get shot. Daffy. Mm-hmm. His beak just spins around his head, and he straightens it back up and spits the pellets out.
That's it.
Done deal. But they're still going to allow Elmer Fudd to have Acme items, explosives, rockets, all that other stuff. But he can't have a gun. So he can blow Bugs Bunny to smithereens with a bomb, with TNT.
Right.
But he can't have his gun. Because it scares you.
I mean, it's a character designed as a hunter. I guess you can call him a sportsman. Like he hunts for sport. Well, if you're gonna change it, just change the whole character then, because
just take him out.
It makes no sense. Like,
he makes no sense. He's even still dressed in his old school hunting gear, right, running around with a scythe. This makes no sense. I'm going to leave that one. And Yosemite Sam, I haven't heard what they're going to give him now that he doesn't have his guns, but right, how can you be a gunslinger without guns? Right. I mean, your whole character is designed around he's a gunslinger. He needs a gun to complete his character ensemble, if you will. Like, these characters were designed to have guns. I mean, it's in their name. One of the main things I remember about watching Bugs Bunny and Elmer Fudd go at it was like Bugs would bend his barrel back towards him, right, or he'd poke his finger into it and make it blow back into his face. How does their interaction even work without that? Wabbit season, duck season. Right. How are they arguing over that? They're passing the scythe back and forth. In the old school, they were aiming the gun back and forth. Right. This has gotten to such ridiculous levels. I mean, you're changing cartoons that have been around for generations in order to appease people who just don't understand historical context. Or they just don't understand guns. Maybe it's projection. Maybe they don't trust themselves with guns, so they don't want anybody else to have them. Fair point. If someone would actually come out and say that, I would respect that more than just guns bad, scary, go away. If you ever needed a good argument for why you need an AR-15 with 30-round standard capacity magazine, that's not high capacity. 30 rounds is a standard magazine. Standard. If you ever needed a reason why you need it, watch the news. Look at Minnesota. Look at Los Angeles. Look at Seattle. I mean, you literally see it with your own eyes. And the most annoying argument ever to someone who doesn't, or who does study history, then the most important reason why you need to not look at historical events with a 21st century lens or assume things about that time period with your understanding of right now is because it gives you that could never happen here. That could never happen now complex. We're too advanced for that. We're too refined for that. We've grown too much as people for that. But we literally see history repeating itself. Sadly. And people tie things back to old situations. Kind of like your favorite podcasters. People look at things from the past and they're like, oh, well, they're so crazy. How did that happen? Open your eyes. But on that note, don't take our word for it. Do your own research. Look into things that have happened in the past and see how they connect to right now. And don't get your history facts from social media. Don't get your history facts from Wikipedia. Yeah. Either. Because either one can be changed. Fact checkers can be skewed that's a good word, depending on their political affiliations. Usually online, you try and get 3 different sources with 3 different political leanings and then kind of add them all together. And the things that match are usually the true parts. Yeah, I'll always look for .edu or .org. They tend to be a little more reputable, but not all the time. And certainly don't go .gov. No. But as always, We don't want you to take our word for it. We want you to do your own research, form your own opinions, trust, but verify.